Good afternoon, everyone. We'll give people just a little bit to jump on. Hopefully I can see comments today. My name is Sarah Hotchkiss from Catalyst Wellness Coaching. I am live again at Basics Co-op, Saturdays at 2 every other month. We had talked about doing this outside actually today, but I'm glad we didn't. First of all, you'll see I'm sitting in a array of food, so we would have had to haul it outside. But second of all, it's just a little crummy and rainy out today, so it probably wouldn't have been great. But potentially in July, we might be able to do a live outside event. So if anyone's interested in that and you want to see a little bit more in person or talk with me after, then that might be a really good option. So I'll give people just a little bit to jump on here. I am here today. This will be a fun one. A lot of show and tell as your virtual grocery shopper, essentially. How to come to Basics or anywhere else and fill your cart with healthy stuff, and how to just maybe think a little bit differently. We're going to talk about macronutrients today, and just think a little bit differently about what you're putting in your cart and what the balance of that is. So hi Lori, Marty, hey Tammy. So this will be just some general health advice too. So if you have something from your doctor, or if you have an autoimmune condition or something else where there's certain foods that I present here that you don't eat, that's totally fine. I'm just going to give you some general categories and some generally good choices of things that you can choose from today. So then that should be good options for everyone. We're going to talk a lot about macronutrients today, which is maybe something that you've heard of, but you don't exactly know what they are. But I'm going to connect that with food choices today. A little bit about how to determine your personal caloric needs. We need calories for energy. We need enough energy. We don't want to eat too much. If you are looking to lose weight or lose fat, I'm going to talk a little bit about that too, and like what adjustments you might make in the foods you might buy and your caloric needs and how to do that. Hi, Cheryl. So we'll go over foods from each kind of macronutrient group, and we'll do that first. First, I'll talk about macronutrients, and then we'll talk about which foods are in each of those macronutrient groups. There's essentially 3 groups. And then I will walk through how to build a couple sample meals, thinking of this whole macronutrient idea in your mind. And then I'll have a little bit of information at the end if you have more questions, like meal plans and just macronutrients kind of 101. So my latest blog in May that came out May 2nd was all on macronutrients, actually, like macros 101. So this will be just kind of an overview today too. But if you are wanting more information on it, I'll put a link here in the comments, and then you can check the blog out, and that'll give you a little bit of information as well. Hi, Vicki. Oh, good. We got lots of people joining, and I can see comments, so that's always a plus. So what are macronutrients? And if anybody knows, kind of, you can jump on and share. And if, as always, as we're going through here, if you have comments or questions, drop them in here. I'll try to answer them as we go. If I'm unable to as I'm going, I will answer them after the presentation. Macronutrients are large amounts of nutrients needed for the body to function. And there's 3 major types: protein, carbs, and fat. They make up calories for energy that we need to live. We all have different caloric needs and different macronutrient ratio needs based on how big you are, based on your genetics, based on your health goals. It's all a little bit different. We're going to talk a few numbers today too. I'm going to give you just a few basic formulas. I dive deeper into it into my class, but just a couple basic numbers on maybe how to get a sense for how many calories your body needs to function. That'll vary quite a bit depending on what your activity level is and things like that, but we'll talk a little bit about that. Why does it matter? Why do macros matter? Why are they important for health? You have to have really a little bit of each of them, or in my opinion, a really nice balance of each of them. So I don't generally advocate super low fat diets. I don't advocate super low carb diets or super low protein or high protein. So this will be a very moderate approach where you're getting about 30% or so of protein, carbs, and fat in a really balanced diet. That's what I find that most people are able to maintain long term, and it's best for health. And it's also good for weight loss if you're trying to do that. That's kind of my approach today. I find that it's the most self-sustaining approach. I find a lot of people that come to me have been doing yo-yo diets for decades, essentially their whole life. And so that affects your metabolism long term. and the amount of food that you're trying to eat. So what I try to do with people is try to get you to eat as much food as possible and still reach whatever your health goals are, even weight loss. So the idea of going on some 11 or 1200 calorie diet might be great, and you will probably lose weight, but you probably will also going to be deficient in some of these macronutrients. You'll be deficient in micronutrients long term. I'm talking B vitamins, D, iron, things like that. And in the long run, it's just going to come back to bite you with some health issues. And the minute that you stop eating 11 or 1200 calories and you bump up to even 16, which isn't very that much, you're going to put the weight back on because your body has been used to eating very few calories. So what I try to do with people is try to kickstart your metabolism. There's kind of specific ways we do that, and get you to eating, maybe closer to 2,000 calories, so you don't have to feel like you're dieting, and you shouldn't be dieting. It should be just kind of long-term solutions. Hey, Cheryl. So it's good for energy. We all need calories to function. It's good for disease prevention and getting that right macro balance. It's very good for lean muscle mass, whether or not you're trying to build lean muscle mass or you're just trying to maintain lean muscle mass. So when people come to me and say they want to lose weight, usually what you really mean is that you want to lose fat, because none of us want to lose any lean muscle that we have, and you don't want to affect your bone density either. So I try to work with people on specifically losing fat. If you lose too much weight too fast, you'll often lose muscle mass. And then you'll see that a lot of times in people's cheeks get kind of sunken in, your arms get skinny. So you want to maintain the muscle you have in your body, but you want to lose that fat, which usually gathers around the abdominal area for most of us. But the right amount of macronutrients and not going extreme in one way or the other with any of them will help your body function all the way down to the cellular level, which is important kind of long term. So, hey, Julie. So I have some general suggestions for amounts of each of the macronutrients. I'm going to give you kind of a tour here of some foods in each category. So protein, carbs, and fat. As a nutrition coach, the one that I see that people struggle with the most, in my opinion, and especially if you're trying to drop weight, is protein. So for an easy calculation, I generally suggest that you get 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight, which may or may not be the current weight that you're at. But I'll go through kind of an example too. So 1 gram of protein in a day per pound of your ideal body weight. So if you are 200 pounds, but you want to be 160 pounds, I would shoot for 160 grams of protein. You want to spread that out over the course of the day. If you try to eat 160 grams protein all in one meal, you probably won't be able to finish all that because that's a lot of food. And second, you'll probably have problems digesting all that. So I usually have people split it out over 3 meals, or maybe 3 meals and a snack, something like that. So that's the first, is the protein. So we'll run through that. The second is fat. And again, I advocate for a very moderate fat diet. So I generally shoot for about 30% for most people. It depends on your goals. If you have insulin resistance or a poor tolerance for carbohydrates, I might bump it up to 35. If you are really looking to lean out temporarily, or I might bump you down to 25, but usually about 30% of your calories from fat. Fat has 9 calories per gram, so just remember that. Is when you're looking at all the grams of things, you may get 150 grams of protein and 150 grams of carbohydrates in a day, and I might say only 60 or 70 grams of fat. It doesn't mean that you're eating a lot less fat than those other 2 categories. You're eating actually about the same calorically, because fat has 9 calories per gram. It's much more dense, and protein and carbs only have 4 calories per gram. So 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight for protein, 30% about, give or take, in fat, and then really the rest left over would be carbohydrates, and you can decide kind of where you get your carbohydrates from, and I'll go through that a little bit today. But then you're thinking, okay, that's great. 30% of what? How do I know how many calories to eat? There's lots of different methods to calculate that. I use quite a few different methods in my practice, but I'm going to give you just one kind of a really easy method today. You can take your body weight times 14. So if you do that, that's a general ballpark of where you might be. So if you are 150 pounds times 14, that would be 2,100 calories a day, which is like a pretty average amount. What I usually have people do actually is track what they eat for a solid week. And then we see how many calories they're just sort of like used to eating. Cause this might, like the 2,100 estimate might be off by a few hundred either way. And that could mean the difference of you either not eating enough or eating too much, depending on what your goals are. But that's a good starting place. In my macro class, I go through kind of a couple different ways of doing it, but my favorite way to do it is to have people track their macros and just total calories for a week, because that gives me data of what you're doing that's either working or not working for you. So if you come to me and you want to lose some weight and you are eating an average of 2,000 calories based on accurate tracking for a week, then, and I don't crash diet people, I would never suggest that, but we would look at maybe like a very small deficit over a longer period of time, making sure that you're getting your macronutrients from whole foods, getting enough protein, stuff like that. But if you were at 2,000 calories and you're like maintaining your weight, but you wanted to lose a little bit, 20 pounds or whatever, I would probably cut you. I usually start people at about 10% at a time. So that would be like 1,800 calories. But then I would give you suggestions of how to be full on that and, that type of thing. I get a lot of feedback in the meal plans that I do from people that the calories are not super high. They're very moderate, and people say they can't eat all the food, that they're super full, because what I'm having people choose in their meal plans is much more filling, and it's different than, what you might grab. So, 4 to 5 cups of cabbage with a little bit of sesame seeds sauteed in olive oil has about the same amount of calories as a Pop-Tart. But I guarantee you the 4 cups of cabbage is going to keep you full, like super long, especially if you put a little chicken in it, as opposed to Pop-Tart. So the food also, I will say that I'm going to suggest here is all whole food stuff. It takes up more room. So if you are not used to eating a whole foods diet, you need to get a bigger lunch bag, because it's all your containers, you're going to start taking up a lot of space. So I know people always used to think that about me. I'm sure they look at me and they go, gosh, she's so small and like she eats so much. But it's just because my food takes up more space. Veggies and some of that other stuff takes up more space. So do the math while you're at home, or if you're sitting in your car or wherever you are, and figure out your calories maybe right now. Take your body weight times 14. Now, if you are 150 pounds, but your ideal body weight is 140 pounds, then you need to use the 140 pound times 14, not the 150, because obviously you're eating at what, you're maintaining right now. So take your goal weight times 14. So let me walk through just a few numbers with you, and then we'll kind of jump into the food a little bit of how you might do that. So let's use a 150 pound example. You take that times 14, 2,100 calories in a day, right? Okay. So let's say you want to lose a little weight and you want to lean out, but you want to do it very carefully, being mindful of your metabolism and maintaining your lean body mass. So let's say you wanted to be 140 pounds, let's say, but you're 150, so you want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, but we want to lose, like I said, the right kind of weight. So if you're maintaining your current weight of 150 pounds at 2,100 calories, I would start you at a 10% deficit of that, and kind of maintain that, but we'd get the right macronutrient profile in there. So we do about 1,900 calories. So let's use that for this example. So we have 1,900 calories, right? So I always start with protein and then fat and then carbs. So you got 1,900 calories to work with, right? So your ideal body weight is 140 pounds. So we're gonna say 140 grams of protein in a day. So that would be that. 140 grams times 4 calories per gram is 560 calories. So there's 560 of your 1,900. That's taken care of, okay? If you're at home, you can do this. The next category would be fat. Like I said, I'd shoot for just 30% as like a really good estimate. So you would take your 1,900 calories that I'm suggesting times 0.3. That's 570 calories from fat, so almost the same as protein. And then you're going to divide that by 9, because fat has 9 calories per gram. And that will tell you how many grams of fat you would get in a day. Ballpark. That's 63 grams. So far we got 140 calories of protein, 63 grams of fat. So then you have 770 calories left over from this 1,900 calories that I'm suggesting here. So that all can be carbohydrates. So carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram. So you'll take 770 divided by 4, and you get 193 carbohydrates. which is plenty. But that's not low carb at all, but it's not high either. It's just like a really good estimate. I individualize this for people when they come to see me, but this is a real good, just like basic overview. So that would be just kind of a good summary of a 1900 calorie diet there. 140 grams of protein, if that's your ideal body weight, 63 grams of fat, and 193 grams of carbs. What I mostly see from people is either they're eating too much fat and carbs combined, which are your energy sources, and then not enough protein. Or I see people that are doing just a really low carb approach, which can work for some, but I find that it's not sustainable over the long term. So I find that people are doing really high fat. So like if you do keto or like a lower carb diet, what you want is essential fat, or you want enough fat, but you don't need to go over the top with it with like fat bombs and extra coconut oil and drinking olive oil or whatever. You don't need to do all that because that's more than your body probably needs. So sometimes I find that people aren't eating enough carbohydrates and are eating too much fat. And if your body is not a fat burner and are used to burning carbohydrates, you're gonna be tired because you're used to using carbs for energy, and now you're trying to get your body to use fat, but it hasn't really switched over. Now, some people are very metabolically flexible and they can burn fat too. But that is difficult, I would say, for the general population. So that's not who I'm going to speak to as much today. Across the board, I see that people are not getting enough protein from enough varied sources, I would say. You can think of like your typical breakfast, maybe. You grab a muffin or a waffle and a cup of coffee, so you're getting your carbs and fat, but you're kind of missing the protein. So I'm going to talk a little bit about breakfast in particular today, actually, and how to, feel like I want to write a book someday that's called Redefining Breakfast. I've really had to do that for myself too, to think outside the box of non-breakfast foods and just think in, from a nutritional perspective, how I can get my best nutrition on 3 meals a day. And maybe that doesn't look like what I'm used to eating. So that's kind of the numbers. Does anybody have questions on that? You can kind of calculate for yourself at home using that ideal body weight method times 14. And then you can start breaking that out. So then you'll take your ideal body weight for protein grams, and then 30% of the total calories for fat, and then the rest is carbs. Oh, sure. Amber says she talk about my macro class. Is that what you want to talk about? Yeah, I've got that in here. So I put a link in the comments of the I called it Macronutrient Magic class. It's launching Monday morning, actually. So I'll give you guys, you're like the first to hear about it. I'll give you just a little heads up on it. If you're feeling like this overview is super interesting to you, but you still need more information, like I said, my blog is on my website, but I'm launching a class that you basically could download and take yourself at home. It'll be me talking in a lecture format for a couple hours, and tons of like PowerPoint and AV slides. There'll be homework in there, quizzes, things where you can do all these calculations yourself. I'm going to give you I'm going to show you how you use macro calculators, MyFitnessPal, things like that. I have recipes in there. I'm going to show you how to build recipes. I'm going to go over it today generally. And then I have about 20 pages of handouts and resources for you. So if this is something that you're interested in doing, you can download it and just, like I said, take it from the comfort of your own home. You can always shoot me, if you have questions or whatever, you can send me an email. But I'm getting lots of requests for people to learn more about macros, and I spend lots of time coaching that with people. And so I think that this will be a good resource for a lot of people, because I think it's a little bit different than how maybe we're used to eating or thinking of doing things, but it's the most kind of sustainable approach and kind of holds you accountable. So that's an option. If you need help creating meal plans on appropriate macros, I have meal plans on my website too, so I'll put a link on there for that. I have an autoimmune meal plan that's downloadable, ready to go. It's a 6-week meal plan, and it has usually a smoothie or like some sort of a protein smoothie shake, and then usually breakfast, lunch, and dinner on a rotation for 6 weeks. I have a more general meal plan on there. That's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today, and some of the groceries here. And then soon to come, for those people struggling with a lot of like GI disorders, by midsummer, by the 1st of July, maybe June, I will have a low FODMAP meal plan ready to go for you. So then you have a couple options of things. I am finishing a pescatarian meal plan also, so that I will probably launch this week as well. And It has very limited dairy, some goat and sheep's dairy, a lot of eggs, and then fish and seafood. So no meat, no poultry. So if that's something that is the way that you eat, but you wonder like, how do I meet my protein requirements, or how do I get my macros if I don't eat meat? That's a good option too. So I'll post that as well. So, hey Morgan, hey Nancy. So let's do some show and tell here. Like, let me show you some just grocery examples from each of those categories. So I've got protein, carbs, fat, and I'm gonna talk just a little bit about fiber in here today too. Low FODMAP, yeah, that's like a class in itself. But basically FODMAPs are in carbohydrates, so they're not in meats or fish or seafood, but they can even be in nuts. And they are harder to digest, long chain carbohydrates. So it reminds me of, we were just talking about the class, like when I think of like low FODMAP, it's kind of bringing yourself back to like very easy digestible foods. So for those of you with toddlers, if you have a 2-year-old, you're not gonna let them chew on like raw broccoli and cauliflower, like a whole bunch of it, right? Because they'll get like gassy and feel uncomfortable digestively, like it might be a mess. So for those people with actually IBS, or even just diagnosed small intestinal disorders or diverticulitis, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, low FODMAP is super helpful for that, sometimes in addition to some other restrictions, but low FODMAP is just really just kind of eases your system. You could eat like that really long term because it doesn't eliminate any food groups. And in fact, there's plenty of carbohydrates on it. It's not a low carb diet, but it's eating different kinds of carbohydrates that sit with your gut a little bit better. So it's low fermentable carbohydrates is what it is. And maybe that's a better way to explain it. So it's fruits like strawberry, kiwi, citrus fruits, green bananas, but it's not apples, peaches, plums, some of the stone fruit, you know. I'll be doing a class on this also this summer, but there's apps for it too, you know, so when you're shopping, you can be like, what the heck do I buy? So things like Brussels sprouts and cauliflower, celery, those are all high FODMAP, and so sometimes people have a hard time digesting those. But then there's plenty of, you know, foods that are low FODMAP that you can do. All the potatoes, all the sweet potatoes, green beans, broccoli heads, but not the stalks, super confusing. Green peas, and then there's safe serve amounts. So, oh, Julie, you have to go. Yeah, just watch the rest on the replay. But yeah, so for me, it's like figuring out your individual diet and what works for people. So those are kind of the few approaches that I have. Autoimmune is an approach, anti-inflammatory, we could talk about that sometime. Low FODMAP is an approach. But big picture here today, I'm just trying to get people to think more about just leading a balanced lifestyle and a balanced diet. So when I work with people and we work for 6 months or so on kind of diet and changing lifestyle habits, when they leave me, I want them, it should be something that they're able to maintain. Like, hey, I've had people say, I could eat like this for the rest of my life. Boom, that's perfect. That's what we want. I don't want you to, you know, sign up for Weight Watchers or Drenny Craig or something and then go on a diet essentially, and then in 3 months, like, go off it because you're like, wow, when am I done? I can't do this anymore. So the idea is long-term to find a way to meet your health goals, stay healthy, have energy, have good digestion, you know, clear some of the symptoms you're having, headaches, whatever, but be able to just eat like that for the rest of your life. Like, this is your life. This isn't a diet. A diet in itself means something short-term, and that's what we don't want. So, hey, Linda. So let's go over some food groups here. It's like a 50% chance I drop my phone while we're doing this, so we'll give it a shot here. So let's hit some proteins first. All right, so and all these products are at basics. I can even look up the prices on some of them potentially during or after. So here's some eggs. Amber, do you guys have duck eggs anymore? Oh, they have duck eggs right now. Yeah. Duck eggs are the best. Those are my favorite. So let me talk about duck eggs for a second. Duck eggs first of all, they're huge. And I found out that the hard way once when I was baking, and it called for 3 eggs, and I added 3 duck eggs. It's almost like quiche instead of a muffin, because 3 duck eggs is essentially like 6 regular eggs. So it's super eggy. So 10 out of 10 would not recommend doing that. So remember that they're bigger. They're super rich and I would say buttery, and the yolk to white ratio is higher. So when you crack a duck egg, the yolk is huge in there. There's way more yolk than there is white. They have 10 grams of protein. They're amazing, and the flavor is great. Also, I would say that about 3/4 of the clients, including myself, have a sensitivity to chicken eggs. But a lot of them, when they try local duck eggs, don't have an issue, which is great. Because I'll tell you, cutting eggs out of your diet and trying to bake and stuff is sort of hard to do. It's doable, but duck eggs are a great option. So, yay. Okay, so there's the eggs again. Any kind of beef, ground beef. Here's a sirloin steak here. I really like flank steak as an option. You could do ribeye, T-bones. I generally have people keep it a little bit on the leaner side. It doesn't have to be crazy lean, but because you'll get your fat from that too. But yeah, any kind of beef product. We've got a couple fish options here. This one's so easy because you could just like take this for lunch or mix it with a little, my favorite mayonnaise brand is Primal Kitchen, which is also at Basics. There's a couple flavors here. So if you mix this with a little bit of Primal Kitchen mayo and throw it on, it could be toast or an English muffin, or you could dip, you could throw it in a pepper or a tomato, like that's an option too. Tuna, we got a salmon here. And this is wild caught, which is really important too, as far as inflammation. So I try to have people get all wild caught fish. So both of these are, of course. And then here's just cod fillets. These are super easy, you guys, just to cook with because they're skinless, boneless, and like literally ready to go. If you have an air fryer, throwing a couple of these in your air fryer for probably 10 minutes with a little bit of lemon and dill and olive oil, and boom, throw that in with some like little baby red potatoes and then maybe a salad, and you have dinner. So, or you have lunch like every day for the week. You could make lunch in like 10 minutes. So that's good. Chicken, of course. I would say turkey also. So these are organic chicken breasts. You can use thighs too. I am actually partial to thighs. I think they are a little bit more moist, so I prefer them. They're still very lean. They're also a little bit more cost effective too. So for myself, I'm making 2 pounds of chicken just for one meal for myself for the week. So like we go through a lot of chicken in our house, and then probably another 2 pounds in the week. So I'm going through 4 pounds of chicken, in our house. So I sometimes will get thighs, but these are a really good option. This is an amazing brand. And actually, if you haven't been to Basics recently, the entire meat section has been redone. Like the cooler's new and it's all organized and there's handouts there and it's great. I actually took a picture earlier when I was here, so maybe I'll post that. Pork chop. People forget about pork as a protein option. Honestly, I hear people like beef and chicken, but like pork is a really good option. Ground pork, pork chops, pork steaks, pork ribs, pork loins, pork tenderloins are amazing. And those a lot of times are easy too. You can throw those on the grill, butterfly it, or just leave it. They cook in about 20 minutes on the grill, 20, 25 minutes, can't mess them up. You could do like a teriyaki sauce. If you want a meatless option for protein, I prefer the organic high protein tofu option because there's quite a bit of protein here. There's a baked option that has like a teriyaki seasoning in all of it, or this one is honestly my favorite brand right here. So we throw it on the grill or I put it in stir fries. So that's got about 14 grams in a serving. I would usually have 2 servings of that to try to hit my protein goals, but it's not hard to do. Tofu is very versatile. You can add it teriyaki, sweet and sour sauce. You can make, my daughter actually just puts it in the oven and kind of like bakes it. So it's kind of like chewy. And then she puts like garlic, salt, and pepper on it. So it's kind of like a snack. So we do that at our house too. What I prefer from a protein standpoint, and honestly for all the macronutrients, is that you just get a variety of all these things if you can. Kind of depending on what you like, but it's good to get a little bit of all these things. I've had people come in and say like, I cannot eat any more chicken. I'm eating too much chicken. I'm like, well, why are you eating so much chicken? There's like lots of options here. So that's kind of the protein gamut. It's not like everything that you could buy, but that's a good sample there. Anybody have questions on the protein? So you do a gram per ideal body weight and you try to get it from most of those sources. Now, when we talk about carbs and fats, there's going to be protein in some of these other things that we talk about. But the ones that I showed you are probably the most efficient sources. And even eggs, I have a whole big thing about eggs. Eggs have a chunk of protein, but honestly, they're about 60% fat. So just remember that. If you're trying to get 30 some grams of protein in a meal, you could have eggs, but you'd have to have like 6 of them. That's a lot. But if you like omelets, then you're good to go. So, but yeah, I just try to get people to get most efficient sources of protein. So some of these other things like quinoa and some of the other fruits and vegetables have protein in them. Most foods have a little bit of each of the macronutrients. I'm just showing you the ones that have the most in that category. So let's, since I'm right here, come over to fats a little bit here. So my favorites are extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, and coconut oil. So I like to cook in solid fats and drizzle with liquid fats, if that makes sense. You denature the protein of a really good olive oil or an avocado oil when you heat it up. It doesn't make it bad for you. You're just not getting the anti-inflammatory benefits of the raw part of the oil that you would after you cook it. So that's my only suggestion with that one. Again, Primal Kitchen, really good brand here too. So for drizzling, I like olive oil, avocado oil. I like a cold pressed macadamia or a walnut oil if you can find that. But no go on the corn oil, the canola, the soy, like those I don't prefer because those are a little bit more highly processed. So these are my favorite oils for fats. As far as solids, coconut oil I really like for baking. Even just plain butter is fine. The other one I like that you guys will freak out when I say it, you'll be like, wait, what? Is honestly bacon fat. So if you remember like your mom or your grandma would make pancakes and they'd fry up bacon and say bacon fat on the side of the stove. That's a very like natural source of fat. Do you need to use a cup of it when you're sauteing vegetables? No, you don't need to do that. But you can use a couple teaspoons and it gives kind of a great flavor. And it's a natural source of fat. So that's an idea. Avocados. Avocados are great for fat too. If you've ever seen like an avocado brownie recipe, there's no added oil in there actually. It's just avocado because avocados have quite a bit of fat. So that's a good fat option. Avocados are technically a fruit, so it's interesting kind of the macronutrient profile in those. And then bacon. So you're wondering, well, why didn't I put the bacon? This is a great, Applegate Naturals is a great brand too. And this one is uncured, so nitrite free. I'm thinking, why is the bacon not in the protein section? So, but bacon's like 80% fat, so there's some protein in it. But use your bacon to, flavor some of your dishes, like steam a spaghetti squash and then saute it in bacon, your diced bacon, or put some diced bacon on a salad, or, things like that. Or have a couple slices of bacon, but then maybe balance it out with a carbohydrate and a protein that you would have for breakfast. So, maybe you'd have... you could have it with eggs, or maybe you'd have a protein shake and then maybe you have a sweet potato or something like that. So again, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. But yeah, so there's like 6 grams of protein in a bacon serving, which is fine. But like I said, if you're shooting for like 30 something potentially in the example that I gave for 140 grams, you'd have to eat a lot of bacon. So I guess that's not bad either because bacon's amazing. But so that's kind of the fat category. And that's about 30% of your diet. Now, you're going to get some natural fat in some of the proteins and a little bit even in the carbohydrates that I talk about here too. But this is B for, adding fat if you are drizzling things or cooking things in fat. If you're finding that you're going over on your fat grams on a regular basis, you can also steam things or like look at grill things. There's different ways to cook things so you don't have to use quite as much added fat too. So, okay. I'm going to hit fiber at the end, but let's talk about carbohydrates here. Wanted to bring some standard vegetables and fruits and grains that people use, and maybe a couple that you haven't heard of. So we got some cauliflower in there. You can roast this, you can grill this, you can steam it. Same with like broccoli. Bok choy is one of my favorites. And actually, I love the baby bok choy from Basics here because the texture and the flavor is a little bit milder. So bok choy is in the cabbage family, But if you don't like cabbage, still try bok choy because it's much milder than like a regular cabbage. It's really good in stir fries. I do it, I would say once a week, probably at our house. I just stir fry the baby bok choy with whatever vegetables I've laying around, sometimes like sugar snap peas or red peppers with a few sesame seeds and a little bit of sesame oil, and that's like our vegetable side. Aren't these cute? Little mini peppers. We go through a lot of peppers in my house. My kids like them, and they're pretty versatile, and they're great on the grill especially. But like these are cute to stuff with like a tuna salad or chicken salad or something like that. Or I just put them in my kids' lunch because I think they get some funny looks because I think the rest of the kids aren't eating entire peppers, but maybe mine are. So then we got yams and white potatoes, red potatoes. My other favorite that I don't have pictured here that Basics has semi-regularly is purple potatoes, purple sweet potatoes. Or there's purple white potatoes too. So those are just, pretty, and they have great nutritional profile as well. So these are all carbohydrates. Vegetables are carbohydrates. They're technically a little bit lower carbohydrate. Even potatoes get a bad rap, you guys, but I think it's because people are thinking about McDonald's French fries. But seriously, have a baked potato. Have a sweet potato or saute it with something. One of my favorite things to do with a sweet potato is dice it or shred it and saute it with like some ground turkey sausage and some kale. And then like you have a little bit of fat, you have some protein, and then you have some carbohydrates from your sweet potato. And that you could make, and that would keep for the whole week. Apples, of course, pears, all the berries are great. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and then you guys may not have seen this before, and you're thinking, well, I don't know, that doesn't look very good, but that's a blood orange. So they're sweeter, I think. They're great for juicing because they make a really pretty color orange, or like a dark red, even though they're an orange. But this is a blood orange. So if you cut through the middle of this, it's almost like dark red. So those are just some examples of fruit and vegetable carbohydrates. Obviously, we could have filled the whole room here with others, but that's an option. Let's go into some kind of grains and other things. Again, thinking about building your meals using appropriate macronutrient profiles. So protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So I don't have things in categories like fruits, vegetables, grains, whatever. I kind of have them in these other three categories. So it's a little bit of a mind switch for people. So lentils are really good for protein and for carbs. I would say I could really put them in either category, kind of 50-50. What I usually do for making lentils at home, and my daughter makes lentil sloppy joes, is you soak them, and they can stay in the fridge with water for about 3 days before you cook them. That helps soften them up before you make them. So there's a lot of different lentils at Basics here, but these are sprouted, so they're a little bit more easily digestible. So these are green, brown, and black lentils. So that's a really good option. These are super affordable right here. You can also get lentils if you haven't looked at the bulk section at Basics, you can get lentils and the rice that we're going to talk about all in bulk. A lot of things you can get at bulk at Basics. Gluten-free oats I would put in this category too. Like rolled oats, like oatmeal would be a really good carbohydrate category. I have people do overnight oats. I had overnight oats this morning because you can add like your coconut or almond milk, maybe a little bit of cinnamon or honey, and your oats. And I put them in mason jars, and I do 7 at a time every Sunday. And then I have overnight oats for like the whole week. Like my breakfast is all set. And I usually have that with something else like collagen in my coffee. But so then we got quinoa, which is probably one of my favorite grains. Quinoa is actually a seed, not a grain. So when I have people that are gluten-free or doing grain-free diets, we actually still include quinoa. Quinoa's got a great protein profile as well. So just look on the back here. So yeah, you're just like, for a grain, like that's pretty high. You have 8 grams of protein in there. So for a serving, it's a 1/4 cup serving, but when you cook it, it's at least a 1/2 cup because it absorbs all the water. What I like to do is cook my quinoa in like a vegetable or a chicken stock. Gives it a little bit more flavor. Let me give you another wild idea. You can totally do breakfast with quinoa. I like the more beige color quinoa for breakfast, but then I make it on the stovetop with coconut milk, maple syrup, and cinnamon. So it's almost like how you might make oatmeal, but you're subbing quinoa for a different texture. Basics also has quinoa flakes I've seen here, so like that's an option too. It's kind of like rolled oats, but it's quinoa. Look at this. This is like lunch ready to go here. Jasmine rice, mildly seasoned. This is like 2 servings right here. So like that's an option. I liked jasmine rice. There's lots of different rice options. There's wild rice, which I really like. Jasmine rice is the most easily digestible, so I like that. This is really affordable here. This like jasmine rice right here. And like I said, you can get it in bulk as well. Yeah, so this bag of rice, you guys, is $2. So, and that's gonna last you a while. Let's look at the servings on here. Oh yeah, 20 servings. So for $2, you got 20 servings of rice in here. So that's great for like your stir fries or chicken and rice soup. Okay, and then I included maple syrup and honey in here in that same category, which maybe you're not used to thinking about, but that's in the carbohydrate category. Anytime you add honey to a smoothie or maple syrup to your pancakes, that's a carbohydrate. So those are really good options too. I like both of those as sugar options. I also like coconut sugar is another option. I really like that as well too, or just some plain organic cane sugar is fine too. Other protein options that I didn't mention are if you're having a hard time hitting your protein in a day, is a really good protein powder. I really like Ancient Nutrition, which is at Basics here, but there's a couple other brands here I like. I also like Pure Paleo. I like the ones with simple ingredients, with only a couple ingredients and not kind of a long list, especially when I'm working with people with food intolerances. It's easier for me to pick out if we can stick kind of real simple. You can get unsweetened. You can get sweetened. Some have stevia or monk fruit in them. Some just have sugar, chocolate, vanilla. I a lot of times have people kind of do that. I know I do that almost every day, just hit my protein needs, and it's so easy. And then it, you know, tastes like a chocolate banana milkshake or whatever. I had chocolate strawberry today. The other option I like, and I like the benefits of it, but it also gives you a little bit of extra protein, is collagen. So Vital Proteins is a good brand. Ancient Nutrition has collagen here as well. You can get unflavored. They have vanilla. They have some collagen creamers here too, like a mocha. Usually over Christmas, there's like a gingerbread I know on the website. Those I have people throw in their tea and coffee like every day, and it gives you an extra 12 grams of protein usually. Doesn't taste like much if you get the unflavored. Doesn't taste like anything. And then collagen's really good for like hair, skin, nails, and joints long term. So those are the other 2 things that I suggest that people add to their repertoire. You know, people are like, why should I drink a shake? Like, why can't I just, you know, I want to eat food instead. Totally, you could do that. But if you are having a hard time hitting your 140 or whatever, it's just like a good, easy way to do that. Throw some fresh fruit in there, and essentially it's like a really good snack. So that's a good option too. I want to talk briefly just a little bit about fiber. It's not technically one of the macronutrients, but I just want to give you some other ideas to add a little bit of fiber, and then these add a little bit of protein things too. Love ground flaxseed. Love it, love it. Great in like pancake batter. Good in smoothies, overnight oats. I put it in my overnight oats every time. Parfaits, same with the chia seeds. These are black chia seeds, and I mean, there's like quite a bit in here because a serving is like a tablespoon. So you can add those to smoothies. So let me tell you just something about chia seeds. They are very hydrophilic and they absorb water. So just don't add too much, because otherwise it'll be kind of like a solid chunk of stuff that you end up drinking, like your smoothie might be solid. So you can also, some people will soak these overnight a little bit before they use them and then toss them into something. So there's some more. There's ground chia seeds, so sometimes that's a better option too. Videos like,
yeah, and pause for a moment.
I'll just keep going here. I'll pause for a little bit because it looks like we're having technical difficulties anyways, and just see if anybody has questions. That's like kind of a sample grocery cart, right? You got some fruits and veggies and maybe some rice, some lentils. You notice I don't have a lot of packaged stuff here, you know, and there's some good brands out there with lots of good options. Like, waffles, pancakes, ready to go meals, whatever. But in general, I try to advocate for people to get 80% of their diet from whole foods, which is what all this is here, just as close to nature as possible. So that's kind of what I'm kind of showing you today, like mostly what to fill your grocery cart with. So any questions? I'm going to giving you an example of just how to build a meal with macros in mind here. And then I'll just take questions at the end. And like I said, there's a link to the blog about macros, the macro class, and then meal plans as well, if you guys have questions on that. But let me give you a couple examples of just how to build a meal. So let's say you're gonna make stir fry. Let me just tell you real simply, like how you could build a stir fry using kind of a balanced macronutrient approach, okay? So you'd start with your protein. Maybe it's pork, or maybe it's tofu, but you're gonna stir fry that in a little bit of maybe sesame oil. I tell people to be conscious of how much oil they're adding to a pan. Oil is great for sauteing and like good flavor. But if you're dumping like a half a cup of oil in stuff, like every time you cook, that's gonna punch your fat and your calories up. So just be conscious, that you're maybe measuring a tablespoon. I think a lot of times we like do this big like drizzle dump thing and it just kind of adds up to be a lot. So just be conscious of that. So you'd start with your protein, whatever that is, and a little bit of oil maybe. And then you'd add whatever vegetables you want. I like to pre-cut my vegetables and have them ready to go in my fridge. So bok choy, peppers, celery, broccoli, carrots, whatever you want for your stir fry. So you'd load up on the veggies, and then you can just serve that over like jasmine rice that I have here, and boom, like there's your meal. Be conscious of your rice servings too. Rice is a higher carb food and it's fine, but you just wanna make sure you're not, like I said, pushing that balance out of whack. So like one serving of rice is totally fine. That's about 43 carbs. So how much protein do you add, or how much meat or chicken or whatever do you add in your stir fry? Well, that depends on your caloric and your protein needs. For me, I know that I need about 4 ounces of protein. I get about 140 grams of protein. Mine's on the higher end probably because I have some carbohydrate intolerance issues. But let's say you're going with that 140 grams of protein example. I know that I need about 4 ounces of protein in each of my meals. So if I'm cooking for the week, I take 4 ounces per meal times 7 days a week, and I start my large bulk cooking meal with 28 ounces of protein. So just shy of 2 pounds of whatever the protein is that I'm using. So that's how I would know that I'm getting enough or balancing it. The veggies, I just add as much as possible because they're good for me. And then I do like, 1 serving of rice. And then if you wanted to drizzle it with like a red chili sauce or a teriyaki or a coconut aminos, that would all be good options in here too. So that would be a stir fry example. It's kind of cold and cruddy out today, so maybe chicken soup would be another option, okay? So you'd start with maybe 28 ounces or 2 pounds of chicken, breasts or thighs or whatever. You'd saute that. And then maybe you add a nice chicken stock or a bone broth even. That would give you some really good protein. You know what I really like that Basics has? I buy them every week. So if you have to restock, Amber, it's because I'm buying them every week. But they're they're like bone broth packets. And you could like make gravy for like Salisbury steak, or like I did a deconstructed chicken pot pie last week. And so I like shredded the chicken and then added vegetables and potatoes, and then I just used 2 bone broth packets and just whisked it with water and then dumped that over the whole thing like a chicken gravy, and it was amazing. And they're like $2 a packet, I think $2.50. So they have beef and chicken here. I add them in my soups. I use them, like I said, the beef one I use for Salisbury steak, so I'll make that and then kind of drizzle that over like potatoes. It's like ready to go gravy in my opinion, and it's only got a couple ingredients, and I really like that. So but back to the soup example, you'd start with chicken, you'd add your broth, and then you'd add just a whole mess of veggies that you like, maybe some zucchini, maybe some white potatoes. And then I like fresh dill in my chicken soup. And then you're done. You have a meal ready to go. You could freeze half of it for the second half of the week. So that's an idea of how to kind of build a meal on your macros. kind of the last thing I wanted to hit on too, and then we'll just see if anybody has questions, is breakfast a little bit. I've mentioned it a few times. So a lot of times we tend to choose really high carb breakfasts that don't have a lot of protein, or high carb, high fat, like quick to go stuff a lot of times if you're rushing in the morning. And so that can spike your insulin really quick, and it causes like a stress response. And that's like not a great way to start the day. And a lot of times I hear people, they're like, I eat breakfast and I'm hungry in an hour. Well, yeah, because you probably didn't have a lot of fiber or protein in there too. You don't need to overdo it. You don't need to, in fact, you don't need to overdo the fiber either, because that can be hard to digest too. But think about redefining your breakfast in terms of what we just talked about here with balanced macronutrients. So it could be 2 scrambled eggs and some overnight steel cut oats with a little bit of flaxseed in them. And then maybe a cup of coffee with collagen. That right there is 33 grams of protein, that meal right there. And that's pretty like breakfasty. You could do a protein smoothie. A lot of people are like, all I have time for is to make a smoothie in the morning. They drink it on the way to work. That's fine. One of my favorite things to do actually is the Ancient Nutrition, the vanilla protein powder. I mix it with, in the summer, I mix it with just cold coffee from the day before on ice. And I essentially make like a vanilla frappuccino. I put a frozen banana in there. That's kind of a great idea too. Like I said, adding collagen in your coffee is a really good option too, or your tea. It can really go in anything. You can put it in water for that matter. But then the other thing I would just have you think about is the idea of eating non-breakfast food for breakfast. So I took the Olive Garden recipe, the zuppa toscana. If you've had that before, it's kind of like a creamy based soup with like potatoes and pork sausage. So I made it dairy-free and a little bit kind of a healthier twist. And so I sometimes will put that in people's meal plans, because people, especially in the winter, like to start their day off with something warm. So instead of oatmeal, then maybe you do like a soup. Or like a chicken vegetable soup is a great way, in the morning. But it's like whatever you feel like. Like some people feel like certain things and some people don't. But it's also retraining your palate to taste different things in the morning too. So you're not just heading for a donut or a bagel with cream cheese or something sweet. So it could be soups. It could be salads. I know on one of my meal plans I have 3 slices of bacon and a sweet potato and then some collagen coffee. Like that could be a breakfast too. And that'll be much more filling and just nutrient dense than some of the other choices I think we tend to make. So I think that's mostly all I have for you guys. I guess if anybody has questions, let me know. Or if you want more, you can send a message, or you can draw. I see these comments for days after, so I try to check back on them. So if anybody kind of needs something additional, I can usually get back to you with that. But that's kind of like a macronutrient overview and just a different way to think about how to fill your grocery cart with the appropriate amount of fat, protein, and carb, and how to figure it out for your personal self, what that might look like. So stop into basics if you want, and get some great food options here. There's a lot of deals going on through June 1st. Let me just read a couple actually before we end here. So that bacon I showed you is $2.50. $2.50, really? Wow. Okay. The red potatoes that I showed you are 99 cents a pound. So that's good, great deal. The peppers are $1.79 a pound. Wow, the bell peppers, that's a great deal. A lot of times I see them for about $5 a pound. So $1.79 a pound is really good. The flaxseed is $6.99 for that entire bag of flaxseed, you guys. There is 28 servings of flaxseed in there. That's a good deal too. The rice we talked about. The extra virgin olive oil I showed you is about $5. The coconut oil is $6.99. Those are really good deals too. Especially, again, if you're using a tablespoon at a time, that should last you a while. So now we're gonna put all this food away, unless somebody wants to come over here and help me eat it, or just do a live cooking demo. I do have a stove and a kitchen in back of me. Maybe sometime we try that, but
That's winter.
Yeah, that's winter. Yeah.
We're going outside next time.
Yeah, we're gonna try to go outside next time, you guys. So in July, we're not going to haul all this food out. In July, we'll let you know what the topic is, and then we'll go outside. So if you want to come in person, we'll set up and have a tent and maybe snacks. Snacks and beverages. Ooh, I love that. Food. We're going to have food next time, you guys. So come in person, and we'll hope for good weather. That'll be the second Saturday in July. So have a good rest of your Saturday, and we'll talk with you all later.